الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, to proceed, to continue our discussion concerning the story of Ibrahim عليه الصلاة والسلام. So the point that we arrived upon from my previous lesson is the statement وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ بَيْتٌ كَبِيرٌ جَدًّا. وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ قرية بيت كبير جدا. This is the next sentence in the story. So we begin with وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ. So, يَعْنَمُ الْحَقِّ وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ. Where have we encountered this before? وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ. Kana we know is al-fi'l al-madi, past tense, kana meaning was.
Yeah.
So it may mean he was, or it was, or there was, right? Depending upon the context. Then we have في هذه. في هذه الجار في هذه المجرور, which is also an اسم الإشارة, meaning في هذه,
in it.
في هذه,
In
هذه,
that.
not that,
Sorry.
that,
In it or
in this,
this.
right? هذه is this, for a female, right? That for a female is tilka.
Tilka, sorry.
هذه and tilka. So why do you use هذه here? Because we have the next word, al-qaryah. And al-qaryah means
Female. Village.
the village. Okay? So, in relation to al-harakat, what do we place on the ta marbuta here? وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ
Qaryati.
al-qaryati. Good. Now the question is, why is al-qaryati majrurun? We've got وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ. So فِي هَذِهِ, we discussed this in our previous lesson. What grammatical rule renders al-qaryati majrurun? Remember what we're saying, وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ.
Discuss.
What state is هذه in? What's the state of هذه? Majrurun. Why is it majrurun?
The fee.
Because of fi.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though we don't write it majrurun, do we? We don't place a kasra on it. Even though there is a kasra on it, but there's only a kasra because it's always written with a kasra. But in terms of the state, the i'rab of هذه, we say it is في محل جر. It's in the position of it being majrurun. Why? Because of fi acting upon it. So if that is majrurun, why is al-qaryati majrurun?
Because the هذه is referring to the career.
Well, it's the opposite. Al-qaryati is referring to hadihi.
Sorry.
And what did we say that rule is? Begin with ba.
Badal.
Al-badalu. It's al-badalu, isn't it? That al-qaryati is the substitute or al-badal of hadihi. Why? Because it's referring to the same thing. Okay, it's referring to the same thing. It's referring to hadihi. Whatever hadihi is, but we know that hadihi is al-qaryati. Why? Because it is al-badalu. What? Remember we said there's three types of al-badalu. Al-kull, al-ba'du, al-ishtimal. One which is al-kull, a direct substitute. One which is a portion of it, and one which is inclusive of it, and we'll explain that in a moment. But the point is that al-qaryati is a direct substitute of hadihi. Okay, right? So therefore it takes the same state. And it's also referred to as ataful bayan, meaning it's a clarification of what hadihi is. Okay? So when we talk about three types of al-badal, this is the first type where you have a direct substitute. Okay? The second type of al-badal is where we say, for example, akaltu, okay, at-tufahata, akaltu at-tufahata nisfahu, nisfahu, okay. Akaltu at-tufahata nisfahu. What does that mean? Akaltu is I ate. At-tufahata is
the fruit.
The apple. Nisfahu.
Half.
Actually that's nisfaha. I've written nisfahu. Because at-tufahata is the apple. Okay. Nisfaha. Okay, right. So nisfaha means half of
the apple.
It,
yeah.
Right? Half of it. So when we said that the second type of al-badalu is al-ba'du, some of it, we can now not substitute nisfaha with a tufahata, can we?
No.
Why? Because a tufahata is the entire apple.
Yeah.
It's the complete object. Whereas a nisfaha is
part of the apple.
Well, half of it. Right? That is why this part here is still called al-badalu. It's still the substitute, but it's not al-kull. It's not all of it. Now it's al-ba'du. Some of it. Right? Because nisfa is only half or some of a tufahata. But the point to note is that the i'rab, the grammatical term that we use to apply to nisfa is still al-badalu, but al-ba'du. Right? So it's still a substitute, but only a portion. Okay? That is al-badal. Al-badal is not particularly difficult. Once you remember that there are 3 or 4 according to some grammarians, but the point is that it takes the same state. At-tufahata is mansubun. Why is at-tufahata mansubun? Because it's a maf'ulun bihi. This is al-badalu of at-tufahata. Right? So that is what we call al-ba'du. Al-ishtimalu, which is the third part of al-badal is, for example, يُعْجِبُنِي يُعْجِبُني الطالب حفظه. Right. What does that mean? What does yu'jibuni mean? Yu'jibuni is the present tense of a'jaba. What does a'jaba mean? A'jaba. A'jaba. Al-fi'l al-madi a'jaba. A'jaba means he amazed. Okay, it means he impressed or he amazed. So yu'jibuni, so we've added, this is al-fi'l al-mudari', this is the present tense, and we've added ya al-mutakallim or I, me to the end. So he
Amazed me.
amazes me. Okay, who is it who's doing the amazing? At-talibu, which is why at-talibu is marfu'un. Right? At-talibu is marfu'un because he's the fa'ilun. Right? So yu'jibuni at-talibu. Then now look. What does it say here? Hifdhuhu. What does hifdhuhu mean? What does hifdhun mean?
Hifdhu means hafiz or something.
Memory.
Memory.
Okay. Hifdhuhu means
He was
his memory.
his memory.
Okay. So, what is it about at-talibu yu'jibuni, which amazes me?
Memory.
His
memory.
His memory. Right? Hifdhuhu, his memory. So, this is called al-badal al-ishtimal. Al-ishtimal. Why is it called al-ishtimal? Because how is hifdhuhu related to a-talibu? It's part of him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? So now you might be wondering, so what's the difference between the second and the third al-badalu? Because the second is al-ba'du, part, and the third is something that's included, something which is inclusive. So what's the difference between being part of and being inclusive of? Al-ishtimalu, the third type, relates to an emotion or a sense or a feeling. It's not something which is physical. It's not something which is physical. So, yu'jibuni at-talibu, the student amazes me. It could be quwwatuhu, his strength, or aqluhu, his intelligence, or hifdhuhu, his memory. Do you understand? It's something which isn't physical.
Yeah.
It's an emotion or a sense or a feeling. Something that is not tangible, physical. That is the third type of al-badalu. Okay? So, in our sentence therefore, وَكَانَ فِي هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ بَيْتْ كَبِيرٌ. So, what do we place on Bayt and Kabir? Think Kana. If we have Kana, we must have an Ismu Kana, and we must have Khabaru Kana.
That's the khubru kana. Bayt al-Karya.
If Bayt Kabir is Khabaru Kana, what state is Khabaru Kana always in?
Mansub.
Right. Did I write that as being mansubun? No. It's not Khabaru Kana, is it? It is Ismu Kana. So it becomes Baytun
Kabirun.
Kabirun. جدا, very. Okay? So, the meaning of the sentence is, كان, there was, بيت كبير, جدا, very large house, في, in, هذه القرية, this village. Okay? So remember that بيت is اسم كان. So what is خبر كان? في هذه. في هذه. But it's not, is it? Remember we explained in our last lesson, it relates back to متعلقان بخبر المحذوف. Okay?
Assumed.
A present or something like that, right? Like موجودا or كائنا or مستقرا. It relates back to a خبر which is محذوف, which is erased. But some people do say that في هذه here is the خبر كان. Right? So that's the first sentence. The next one is وكان في هذا البيت أصنام كثيرة جدا. وكان في هذا البيت أصنام كثيرة جدا. Right? وكان في هذا البيت أصنام كثيرة جدا. So, what do we have here? As soon as you see this, you should recognize that it's similar.
Similar, yeah.
Right? That's why we spent a longer time explaining this particular construct in our previous lessons, because a lot of it is repeated, it's the same. So once you master it initially, then it becomes easy. So here, وَكَانَ فِي هَذَا الْبَيْتِ, what will go on the top?
في هذه البيت.
في هذا البيت. Why?
Because of في.
No. Not because of fi. Same principle here. What is al-bayt here? Al-bayti. Remember, it's this same construct. في هذا.
في هذا, yeah.
في هذا البيت. هذا is مجرور. Why is هذا مجرور? Because it's preceded by في. Even though it's not written as being مجرور, but it's assumed to be مجرور. Right? So why is al-bayti مجرور?
Because of في.
Not because of fi, because of هذا.
Oh.
It's al-badalu. It's the same.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's the same, isn't it?
Because هذا مجرور, that's the بيت مجرور. Because بدل.
Yes. Al-bayti is al-badalu of هذا. Remember, whenever you have an ismul ishara, such as هذا or هذه, and then you have an ismun that follows it, that will be a badal construct. Because the ismun that follows it relates back to the هذا, like هذا القلم. هذا القلم. هذه السابورة. هذا الجدار. Every ism that follows it will be al-badalu to the ism al-ishara, because it relates back to the same thing. So كان في هذا البيت, right? السلام. What does السلام mean? Idols. The plural of sanamun. So why this is a repeat, السلام. Right. So, why is as-salamun marfu'un? We should know this now.
Yeah, that's the khubru kana.
Not the khabaru kana. If it was a khabaru kana, then it would be mansubun.
Ismu kana.
It's ismu kana.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Right? Remember that it's easy to identify an ismun that's a mansubun because it ends with the alif, doesn't it? So that one doesn't. So either I've made a mistake in writing it, or it is the ismu kana. So that is as-salamun kathira. Right, what do we have on the ta marbuta here? Kathira.
Kasiran jiddan.
No, the ta marbuta. Kathira.
Kasirun. No.
No, kathira on the ta marbuta.
Is it kasiran?
No, it's that's a ta marbuta. So it's not kathirun, is it? Or kathiran. It's kathira. Who? Kathiratun.
Well, it's the same thing.
Why is it kathiratun?
Because it's following this ismu.
As-salamun.
Yeah.
Okay. Na'at wal man'ut or sifatun wal mawsuf. It's describing as-salamun.
Yeah.
Right? Kathiratun. Many.
Many.
Now, why is it kathiratun and not kathiruna? Kathiruna, the male version of many, plural. Why is it singular female when we have an ismun which is plural male?
The opposite.
Opposite? No. We have an object which is plural male, as-salamun, right? And we have a sifatun, which is singular female. We know the rule. Whenever you have an ismun which is plural, which is non-human,
a single female.
it's considered to be single female when you describe it, or when you refer back to it with a pronoun. Okay? Or when you have a fi'lun, a verb. Okay? So that's kathiratun jiddan, very. So what does this sentence mean? وَكَانَ فِي هَذَا الْبَيْتِ أَصْنَامٌ كَثِيرَةٌ جِدًّا.
And there was in this house big idols, very big idols, many big idols.
Right. So what's interesting here before we carry on? Right, well, we'll mention the next sentence first. وَكَانَ فِي هَذَا الْبَيْتِ أَصْنَامٌ وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَسْجُدُونَ لِهَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ وَكَانَ النَّاسُ النَّاسُ يَسْجُدُونَ لِهَذِهِ السلام. Right. So, وَكَانَ النَّاسُ. Why is this النَّاسُ? Right, even though it's not the fa'ilun, is it? Because we have kana. So it's the...
Oh, sorry. Ismu kana.
Alhamdulillah, you didn't say khabru kana. It's ismu kana, right? But here, it's like the fa'ilun, isn't it? It's the doer. Even though it's called ismu kana. So, وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَسْجُدُونَ. Right, now we've encountered this frequently, haven't we? Well, we have fi'l mudari', present tense, okay, which is preceded by kana. What does yasjuduna mean?
Is to bow down or something.
Sajada.
Sajada, yeah.
Sujood.
Sujood, yeah.
Okay, it's from the fi'l sajada, which means he prostrated. Sajada, he prostrated. Yasjudu, he is prostrating, singular. This is yasjuduna, yasjuduna. They, plural male, performing sujood. Okay, وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَسْجُدُونَ. Right? Li. Li is harfu jar. Li. Then we have لِهَذِهِ الْأَسْنَامِ. So, لِهَذِهِ الْأَسْنَامِ. What do we place on the meme?
لهذه الأصنام.
Good. It's لهذه الأصنام. Why is it هذه الأصنام? Because it's al-badal. Right. Right. It's al-badal to هذه.
هذه majrur because of li.
Yes. Right. So وكان الناس يسجدون لهذه الأصنام. Okay, this sentence, remember, with the use of kana, and then we have a fi'l al-mudari, what effect does it have on the meaning of yasjuduna? In fact, what does the entire sentence mean, therefore?
And there was people
Right?
sujooding this idol.
لهذه الأصنام, to these idols. وكان الناس, and the people used to
sujood,
prostrate لهذه الأصنام,
in this,
to
this idols.
these idols. Okay? وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَسْجُدُونَ لِهَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ.
You know the other sentence, or fi haza, or haza didn't change because it's about that one, where hazihi.
This and this. في هذا البيت and لهذه الأصنام.
Yeah. Why does it change? Because haza, the top one is still proceed by hurfuja, but we didn't change it because of haza.
Yeah, yes, but this hasn't changed either. Because remember, going back, why is kathiratun single female? Why did we say kathiratun is single female?
Because it's an inanimate object.
Because it's an inanimate object that it's qualifying, which is a snamun. So we treat it as being single female, right? So if al-asnamu is single female, is considered to be single female for the purpose of grammar, then we want to say these idols, what are we going to use?
Oh, that's again single female.
Single female, ismul ishara, right?
That's came to.
We're going to use hadihi.
Yeah, do not.
Right? So it's not that it's changed, it hasn't changed. It's always hadihi because we're using a single female ismul ishara to refer to al-isnam. Right? Now, the point that I wanted to mention here is that this is interesting. Why did the author use the single female when referring to asnamun? Because, as we mentioned, that's the general rule. Whenever you have a plural inanimate object, male or female, such as aqlamun, pens, and we want to refer to them, we're going to refer, say for example, هذه الأقلام. Okay? Or you're going to say, I bought the pens. No. Or you're going to say, for example, I broke the pens. We're going to say كسرتها. كسرتها. We're going to use a pronoun that refers back to the pens, and we're going to use the ha, which is a single female. Why is that important? Because that's the normal rule, right? But when Allah Azza wa Jalla referred to al-asnam, right, in Al-Quran, He didn't refer to them as the single female. In the ayah in Surah Ibrahim, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامَ أن نعبد الأصنام. Right, that's the end of the ayah. أن نعبد الأصنام. That نعبد means
we prostrate.
We worship. We worship al-asnama. Right? So even Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, he asked Allah, wajnubni wa baniya, and make distant from me wa baniya, and my children, and na'bud al-asnama, that we should worship idols. Right? That was the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And na'bud al-asnama, that we should worship idols. Then the next ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, Innahunna, the statement of Ibrahim, Innahunna adlalna, actually that's, let me just change that. Innahunna adlalna كثيرا من الناس كثيرا من الناس. Right, what's interesting about this? Okay, the ayah, after mentioning the words of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that Allah should make distant from him and his children, that they should worship idols, he then said, Innahunna adlalna kathiran min an-nasi. Innahunna. Why is that important? Inna,
indeed,
okay, min huruf al-nasikha al-mushabbiha bil-fi'l. Inna means indeed, right? Hunna, what does hunna mean?
Hunna means
what does hunna? What is hunna?
is a harfu jar.
Is it a harfu jar? Hunna?
Which means the plural them.
Damirun muttasilun, plural them, male or female?
Female.
Female. Okay. Innahunna, female. Okay. Innahunna. Allah Azza wa Jalla referred to al-asnam as plural female. Okay. Plural female. Now, we here, or in the writing of the author, does he refer to them as plural female? Yes, He uses هذه, single female. Okay? Single female. Okay? إنهن أضللن. Then look at this فعل أضللن. Right? أضللن relates to, what does أضل mean? أضل means he led astray. He led astray. أضل means he led astray. Okay? He led astray is أضل. They, plural, female led astray is أضللن. أضللن. So what's interesting about that, Ya Anam al-Haq? أضللن here. What's interesting about it? The difference between how the author referred to al-Asnam and how Allah Azza wa Jalla referred to it. What's the difference?
The author refers single female, Allah refers plural female.
Right. That's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the author refers to al-Asnam as single female, which is a normal use of the language. Whereas Allah Azza wa Jalla referred to it as
plural female.
Plural female. Okay? And that's important, isn't it? Because when do we do that? When do we refer to an inanimate object as being a human in this context? When do we do it? When it's something significant and great. Right? That's when we refer to an inanimate object, which is plural, as a plural female. When it's something which is significant. Now in this context, it's not that as-sanamun is something which are great, but rather it's because of the severity of what they did. That the idols أَضَلَّلْنَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ, many from the people. But the general rule for a plural inanimate object is that it's treated as a single female. Right? So, to continue therefore, what is the next sentence in the story? وَكَانَ آزَرْ يَسْجُدُ لِهَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ. Right. وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَسْجُدُ لِهَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ. Right. So we begin again with kana, we have yasjudu. So the meaning of that is going to be used to prostrate. Okay, because it's talking about events in the past. So it's using wakana yasjudu. Azar, what do we place on the ra here?
Azaru.
Why azaru?
Ismu kana.
Ismu kana. وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَسْجُدُ لِهَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ. Okay? Why do we say al-asnami? For the same reason that we've discussed. Badalu. Okay? So, we didn't mention it earlier, but if الناس is اسم كان. الآزر is اسم كان. What therefore is خبر كان?
يسجد.
Right. يسجد. يسجد is خبر كان. So what? And here يسجدون is خبر كان. So you don't always have to have.
خبر كان.
No. You don't always have to have an ismun for the khabaru kana. The ismun of a khabaru kana can be
assumed.
No, not assumed. The ismun of what type of word is yasjudun? Yasjuduna. فعل المضارع. So if al-fi'l al-mudari is the khabaru kana, therefore it means that you can have a fi'lun as khabaru kana. Okay, you can have an ismun as khabaru kana. So, وكان آزر يعبد هذه الأصنام. وكان آزر يعبد وكان آزر يعبد هذه الأصنام. Right? So, here, وكان آزر يعبد. Again, كان. آزر is the اسم كان. يعبد means
he.
What type of word is it?
Worship. He is a film mudari.
فعل المضارع. What's the ماضي? What's the ماضي of يعبد?
عبادة.
عبد. بدا. عبد means he worshipped. Right? Abada, that fi'lun occurs frequently in Surah Al-Kafirun. La a'budu ma ta'budun. Okay? Abadtum. Okay? We should know abada because it's used frequently. Right? Ya'budu, he worships. I worship is a'budu. You worship single male is you worship single female ta'bu dina. We worship is we worship na'budu. They worship plural male plural male, they worship. Ya'buduna. They worship plural female. No, you're attaching the damirun muttasilun to it for no reason. Ya'buduna. Okay, ya'buduna. Just like you worship plural male is ta'buduna, and do you worship plural female is ta'buduna. Okay, so wakana azaru ya'budu. Wakana azaru ya'budu. So Azar used to worship. What did he used to worship? Hadihi al-asnam. Right, so ya'nam al-haq. Let's test your understanding. What will go on the meme huna?
Kasra.
A kasra. You think it's a kasra. Why do you think that will be a kasra? Because of hadihi.
Badal of hadihi.
It's a badal of hadihi. Right. So what state is هذه in?
هذه is مجرور.
مجرور. Why? What has made هذه مجرور? Think carefully and look at it. What has made هذه مجرور?
No, nothing affected in it.
Right. Well, no, something is affecting it, but it's not anything that's going to make it majroor. Right? So what state? Work backwards first of all. What, rather than asking why is or what state is al-islam in, what state is هذه in and why? Think. كان آزر يعبد. And Azar used to يعبد, worship. So we have our
اسم كان and خبر كان.
Our خبر كان is يعبد. But our خبر كان is يعبد, right? But يعبد itself is what? What is يعبد? فعل المضارع. So فعل, what follows a فعل? فاعل is considered to be هو, تقديره هو. And then what follows the فاعل?
Is
مفعول به. So what state is هذه in?
should be منصوب.
منصوب. It's في محل النصب. في محل النصب. Right? That's how we describe it. مفعول به. It's a مفعول به في محل النصب. That would have a fatha on it, but it doesn't because it's هذه. Right? So, if now هذه is في محل النصب, in the position of being منصوب, what is al-islami?
It should be منصوب.
Should be منصوب. Why?
بدل.
Because of al-badal. Right. Because of al-badal. هذه al-asnama. You see? So, kana, it begins with the fi'l kana. Kana we know comprises of two parts. Ismu kana and khabaru kana. So our ismu kana is azaru. Our khabaru kana happens to be ya'budu. Okay? But in fact, in fact, the khabaru kana is ya'budu hadhi al-asnama. It's all of this ya'budu hadhi al-asnama. But the khabaru kana itself, right? The khabaru kana itself comprises of a fi'lun. And if you have a fi'lun, then you're looking for the fa'ilun. The fa'ilun isn't present, but it's assumed taqdiruhu huwa. It's assumed to be huwa. He, azaru. Right? Then you need a maf'ulun bihi, because we've got one here, hadihi. You don't have to have a maf'ulun bihi, but in this instance we do. We do have a maf'ulun bihi. And it's hadihi, because ya'budu takes a direct maf'ul. And it happens to be hadihi, right? Now, hadihi, like we know, hadihi, even though it's always going to be mabniyun ala kasra, it's always fixed upon a kasra, it's considered to be the maf'ulun bihi fi mahall al-nasb, in the state of being mansubun. Therefore, because that's mansubun, or considered to be, al-sanama, which is al-badalu to hadihi, is also mansubun. Which is why it takes a fatha. And that's the end of the first part. Right, any questions therefore? Clear? Ya alam al-haq? Alhamdulillah, now we shall conclude. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.